5 times. That's how many times my daughter's fiancé asked about our mineral rights before I knew something was seriously wrong. Andrew would stand at the kitchen window, coffee in hand, staring past the oil pumps toward the eastern boundary where our land ended. "Michael, with energy prices rising, have you considered maximizing your mineral rights?" he'd ask casually, as if he were just making conversation. The name's Michael Thompson, by the way. I'm 62 years old, retired from commercial real estate development about 3 years ago. Built up a decent portfolio over the decades. Nothing flashy, but solid investments that let me retire early on 150 acres of Texas oil country. The first time Andrew brought up mineral rights, I thought nothing of it. The second time, I figured he was just curious about the energy business. By the third time, I was paying attention. By the fifth time, something in my gut twisted hard. Jessica, my daughter, would laugh it off whenever I mentioned it. "He's just interested in the industry, Dad. You know how consultants are." But I'd spent 35 years in commercial real estate before retiring. I'd learned to pay attention to patterns, and Andrew's pattern was becoming crystal clear. I met Andrew 9 months ago when Jessica brought him home for Christmas. 34 years old, clean cut, worked as an energy development consultant in Dallas. He said all the right things, complimented my late wife Catherine's Christmas decorations that I'd kept up, asked thoughtful questions about our life on the property. He seemed perfect. Maybe too perfect. Catherine died 3 years ago. Cancer took her fast, and suddenly I found myself alone in this big house on 150 acres that we'd bought 28 years ago for almost nothing. Back then, it was just scrubland with a few old oil wells. Now, with the Permian Basin expansion reaching this far out, energy companies were circling like vultures. I'd gotten offers, big ones. But this was Catherine's dream. I couldn't sell her. Dream. Jessica understood that. She'd grown up here, helped her mother plant the garden that now bloomed wild every spring. After Catherine passed, Jessica checked on me every weekend, worried I was getting lonely. When she met Andrew at some energy conference and they started dating, I was happy for her. She deserved someone good after that disaster with her ex-boyfriend. The engagement came after 8 months of dating. Andrew proposed at some fancy restaurant in Dallas. Jessica called me breathless with excitement. I said all the things a father should say. "Congratulations. I'm happy for you. He seems like a great guy." But I kept thinking about those mineral rights questions. The wedding was set for late September, right here on the property. Jessica wanted to get married where her mother had lived and loved. She'd already hired a planner, booked a caterer, sent out invitations to 200 people. Andrew was all smiles, helping with arrangements, suggesting we expand the ceremony area to accommodate more guests. "You know, Michael," he said one Saturday afternoon in July, sitting on my front porch like he owned the place. "There's a real window of opportunity here. Permian Basin expansion is heading this direction. Have you thought about structuring your mineral rights for optimal tax efficiency?" "Those wells have been producing steady for 15 years, I said, keeping my voice neutral. "Nothing glamorous, but the lease income pays the bills." "Right, but how much more could they produce with modern extraction techniques?" His eyes got that gleam I was starting to recognize. "I could help structure this for optimal returns. There's serious money being left on the table here." There it was again. That evening, after Andrew and Jessica left for Dallas, I sat in my study and pulled out the property deed. 150 acres, purchased in 1996 for $120,000. Catherine and I had scrimped and saved for years to afford it. The property was now worth $3.8 million, maybe more, with mineral rights intact. The oil lease income alone brought in $135,000 annually. I'd never told Jessica the exact numbers. She knew we owned the property free and clear, knew I had a comfortable retirement, but she didn't know about my real estate portfolio. During my career, I'd developed several commercial properties that still generated rental income. Between that and careful investments over 3 decades, I had just over $5.1 million in total assets. The property was the visible part. The rest sat quietly in accounts Jessica had never asked about. I'd lived modestly on purpose, drove a 10-year-old pickup, wore jeans and work shirts, fixed things myself when they broke. After watching Catherine's wealthy cousins tear each other apart over inheritances, I'd learned that money changes people in ways you don't expect. Better to be the quiet neighbor nobody suspects has 2 nickels to rub together. But now Andrew was asking pointed questions. Professional questions. The kind that meant he'd done research. I called my attorney, Jennifer Walsh, the next morning. We'd worked together for 15 years, and she knew how to handle sensitive family matters. "I need you to look into someone for me," I said. "Andrew Sullivan. Says he's an energy development consultant in Dallas." "Michael, is this about Jessica's fiancé?" "Just a precaution. Something feels off about his interest in the property." Jennifer sighed. I could hear papers rustling on her end. "I'll have someone run a background check, but Michael, if you have serious concerns, you should talk to Jessica directly." "Not yet. I might be wrong. I hope I'm wrong." But my gut had been right too many times in 35 years of business deals. You don't survive in commercial real estate without learning to read people, and Andrew Sullivan was setting off every alarm bell I had. "Give me 48 hours, Jennifer said. Those were the longest 48 hours of my life. 3 days later, Jennifer called. Her voice had that careful tone lawyers use when they're about to deliver bad news. "Michael, we need to meet. Not on the phone." I drove to her office in Dallas that afternoon. She closed the door behind me and handed me a thick folder. "Andrew Sullivan is exactly who he says he is. Licensed energy consultant, works for Pinnacle Energy Group. Clean record, no criminal history, pays his taxes on time." But she pulled out another document, this one thicker. I had our investigator dig deeper. Andrew's been engaged twice before, both times to women from wealthy oil families. Both engagements ended abruptly, right after he'd gained access to family financial information. My stomach dropped. I opened the folder and saw the names. Amanda Thornton, 31, daughter of an Oklahoma oil executive. Engagement lasted 7 months, ended 2 weeks after Andrew attended a family meeting about mineral lease renewals and production expansion plans. Rachel Mitchell, 28, daughter of a West Texas landowner. Engagement lasted 5 months, ended right, after Rachel's father revised his estate planning documents. "Did anybody sue him?" "These families don't sue, Michael. Too much publicity, too much drama. They pay to make problems disappear quietly." Jennifer leaned back in her chair. "But I made some calls. Amanda's father told me off the record that Andrew had asked very specific questions about mineral rights transfers, royalty structures, and inheritance planning. He got suspicious when Andrew started pushing for power of attorney arrangements." "And the Mitchell family?" "Similar story. Andrew presented himself as helpful, knowledgeable about energy markets, eager to optimize their mineral rights portfolio. He was pushing for a wedding date that coincided with some major lease negotiations. When the father got suspicious and hired his own investigator, Andrew disappeared overnight." I felt sick. "What about Jessica? Does she know?" "Jessica has no significant assets of her own. She makes good money in marketing, lives home, comfortably, but nothing that would interest someone like Andrew long-term. However," Jennifer paused, choosing her words carefully, "if Andrew thinks Jessica stands to inherit this property and doesn't know its actual value, he might be gambling on future assets, or he's researched me and knows exactly what we're worth." Jennifer nodded grimly. "That's my guess. Michael, I strongly recommend having a serious conversation with Jessica, today." But I couldn't. Not yet. Jessica was so happy, so excited about the wedding. What if I was wrong? What if I destroyed her relationship over paranoia? I needed more than suspicions and patterns. I needed proof. "I want surveillance," I told Jennifer. "Michael, that's a big step. He just offered to help restructure my mineral rights for tax efficiency. He's positioning himself for something. I need to know what." Jennifer was quiet for a moment. "I know someone, a private investigator. Very discreet, very thorough. Sarah Brooks. She specializes in financial fraud cases. Hire her, whatever it costs. Sarah Brooks was worth every penny. Former FBI financial crimes investigator, now private practice. Within a week, she had Andrew's phone records, his email patterns, his meeting schedules, his travel history. Nothing illegal, she assured me, just good old-fashioned detective work and some strategic social engineering. Your instincts are right, Mr. Thompson, she told me over coffee at a diner halfway between Dallas and my property. Andrew Sullivan has a very specific pattern. He targets women from oil families, usually second-generation wealth, where the fathers built the business and the daughters inherited comfortable lifestyles but don't necessarily understand the technical side. How does he find them? Energy conferences, professional networking events, industry social functions. He's charming, knowledgeable, positions himself as someone who can help optimize family assets. The families think they're getting a son-in-law who understands their business. Sarah pulled out a tablet and showed me Andrew's travel patterns. Look at this. In the past 18 months, he's attended energy conferences in Houston, Oklahoma City, Midland, and Lubbock, all oil country, all places where he could meet exactly the kind of woman he targets. And Jessica? Met her at the Dallas Energy Summit last December. She was there representing her marketing firm's energy sector clients. Smart, attractive, single, and she mentioned during a panel discussion that she grew up on a working oil property in North Texas. My blood went cold. He targeted her specifically. It appears so. The timeline fits. He initiated contact, asked her out, accelerated the relationship quickly. Classic pattern. Sarah slid another document across the table. There's more. I've been monitoring his communications. He's been in regular contact with someone named Christopher Davis, apparently a business partner. They've been discussing something called the Thompson opportunity. What kind of discussions? I need to get closer to hear details, but the email traffic suggests they're planning something significant. References to mineral rights valuations, production forecasts, and legal document preparation. My hands clenched into fists. Legal documents? That's what I need to find out. Mr. Thompson, I think Andrew is planning to move fast once he's married to Jessica. The question is exactly what he's planning and how we stop him. I stared out the diner window at the flat Texas landscape. Oil pumps dotted the horizon like mechanical insects. Somewhere out there, Andrew Sullivan was planning to steal my family's future. What do you need from me? Time and access. I need to get surveillance equipment in place, record some conversations, document his real intentions. Can you keep playing the trusting future father-in-law for a few more weeks? How long? Give me until the end of August. By then I'll have enough evidence to show Jessica exactly who she's planning to marry. I nodded. It meant living with this sick feeling in my stomach for another month, watching my daughter plan a wedding to a con artist, pretending everything was normal. But Jessica deserved to know the truth, and she deserved proof she couldn't deny. Do it, I said. Whatever it takes. The next 3 weeks were the hardest of my life. I had to sit there, smile, and play the trusting future father-in-law while Andrew Sullivan planned to rob my family blind. He came by every weekend, helping Jessica with wedding preparations, all the while working his angles. Michael, I've been thinking more about those mineral rights, he said one Saturday afternoon in early August. We were sitting on my front porch, watching Jessica and the wedding planner discuss flower arrangements in the yard. With the wedding coming up, maybe it's time to get serious about optimizing your portfolio. What do you have in mind? He pulled out a folder, professional-looking with the Pinnacle Energy Group logo. I've prepared some preliminary documents. Nothing binding, just frameworks we could implement after Jessica and I are married. Family helping family, you know? I flipped through the papers. Power of attorney forms, mineral rights trust agreements, production optimization contracts, all of it designed to give Andrew Sullivan legal control over my property. This is pretty comprehensive, I said, keeping my voice neutral. Energy markets are moving fast, Michael. The window for maximizing production value won't stay open forever. Permian Basin expansion is accelerating. If we don't act in the next 6 months, you could be leaving serious money on the table." "How serious?" His eyes gleamed. "Conservative estimate? Your current $135,000 annual production could triple with the right extraction techniques and lease restructuring. We're talking about $400,000 annually, maybe more." I nodded thoughtfully, as if considering it. "Let me think about it." What I was really thinking about was how smoothly he lied. Sarah Brooks had already confirmed that my wells were producing at optimal capacity for their age and location. There was no magical tripling of income waiting to happen. That evening, after Andrew and Jessica left, Sarah called. "I've got something, Mr. Thompson. Can you meet me tomorrow?" We met at the same diner. Sarah looked exhausted but grimly satisfied. She slid a small recording device across the table. "Andrew had lunch with Christopher Davis yesterday at a restaurant in Dallas. I managed to get a table nearby with directional audio equipment. You need to hear this." I put in the earpiece and listened to Andrew's voice, clear as day. "The old man's taking the bait. I showed him the optimization projections today, and he's interested. Classic small-town mindset. He thinks he's being smart by taking his time to consider it." Christopher's voice. "You sure about the timeline?" "Weddings, September 15th. I'll spend October being the perfect son-in-law, building trust, getting him comfortable with the idea of me handling family business decisions. By Thanksgiving, I'll have power of attorney and full access to the mineral rights portfolio." "And the daughter?" "Jessica's clueless about the property's real value. She thinks it's worth maybe $1 million tops. She has no idea her father's sitting on nearly $4 million in land value, plus the production income. Once I have legal control, I can structure the extraction deals to maximize my cut." My hands were shaking as I listened. "What about afterwards?" Christopher asked. "That's the beauty of it. Jessica inherits when the old man dies, but if I'm managing the assets through a family trust, she'll never see the real numbers. I can structure payouts to make it look like the wells are declining while actually increasing production. She'll think she's getting a reasonable inheritance while I'm skimming millions." Christopher laughed. "And if she gets suspicious?" "By then, I'll have enough documented legal authority that it won't matter. Energy law is complicated. Asset management trusts are complicated. She's a marketing executive, not a financial analyst. She'll trust her husband to handle the technical stuff." I ripped out the earpiece. Sarah was watching my face carefully. "There's more," she said quietly. "I also recorded a phone conversation between Andrew and someone at Texaco. He's been negotiating a preliminary mineral rights sale agreement. Apparently, he's told them he'll have full legal authority to sell after the wedding." "He's already negotiating to sell my land?" "Part of it. The eastern 50 acres, where the newest wells are located. Current market value around $1.8 million. He's structured it as a lease expansion with an option to purchase mineral rights outright." I felt like I was going to throw up. "How is that legal?" "It's not yet. But once he has power of attorney, he could argue he's acting in the family's best interest by securing a guaranteed sale price in a volatile market. By the time you or Jessica realized what happened, the contracts would be signed, and the money would be in accounts he controls." Sarah leaned forward. "Mr. Thompson, we have enough evidence to go to the police right now. This is textbook fraud conspiracy. But Jessica still doesn't know. If I go to the police without telling her first, she'll never forgive me. She'll think I destroyed her wedding over jealousy or paranoia. So what do you want to do?" I stared out at the oil pumps on the horizon, thinking about Catherine, thinking about the life we'd built on this land, thinking about the daughter we'd raised to be strong and independent. "I want Jessica to hear it herself. I want her to understand exactly who she was about to marry, so she can make her own choice." Sarah nodded slowly. "The wedding's in 3 weeks. That doesn't give us much time to set up a scenario where she discovers it naturally. Then we make our own scenario. Andrew thinks he's so smart, playing the long game. Let's see how smart he is when the game changes." I had an idea forming, risky but necessary. If Andrew Sullivan wanted to play games with my family's future, I was going to make sure he lost everything. The wedding day dawned perfect. September in North Texas. with that crisp edge in the air that promised cooler days ahead. Catherine would have loved it. Clear blue sky, cotton ball clouds, and a gentle breeze that made the oil pumps in the distance look almost picturesque. Guests started arriving at noon for the 2 p.m. ceremony. 200 people filled the folding chairs we'd rented, arranged on the lawn where Catherine used to sit and watch the sunset. The arbor Jessica had insisted on stood decorated with late summer flowers, sunflowers, marigolds, and white roses. Simple, beautiful, exactly what Catherine would have chosen. I spotted FBI Special Agent Rodriguez near the back, looking like just another wedding guest in his navy suit. Sarah Brooks was positioned by the catering tent, casual but alert. Everything was in place. At 1:45, I walked Jessica to the house for final preparations. She looked stunning in Catherine's wedding dress, altered to fit perfectly, her mother's pearls at her throat. "Dad, you seem nervous," she said, checking her makeup in the hall mirror. "Just emotional," I said. "Wishing your mom could be here." "I know. Me too." She hugged me carefully, mindful of her dress. "But I feel like she is, you know? In the garden, in this house, in everything beautiful about today." My heart broke a little. In about 15 minutes, Jessica's world was going to shatter, but she needed to see Andrew's true nature herself. "Jessica, I need you to know something before we walk out there." She turned, concerned by my tone. "What is it?" I pulled out a small recording device and handed it to her. "If anything seems wrong during the ceremony, if you have any doubts at all, press this button. You'll hear something that might change everything." She stared at the device. "Dad, what are you talking about?" "Just trust me. Keep it in your bouquet. If you need to know the truth about Andrew, press the button." Before she could ask more questions, the wedding planner knocked. "Time to go." I walked Jessica down the aisle, her arm in mine, her grip surprisingly tight. Maybe she sensed something. Maybe a daughter's intuition was trying to warn her. At the altar, Andrew stood perfect in his tuxedo, smiling that charming smile that had fooled so many people. The ceremony began. The officiant, an old friend of Catherine's, started with words about love, trust, and building a life together. The irony was almost unbearable. "Marriage is about more than love," he said. "It's about honesty, about protecting each other, about building something that lasts." Andrew's eyes never left Jessica's face. He looked genuinely happy, genuinely in love. That was the most disturbing part. He was a good enough actor to believe his own performance. Then came the vows. Andrew went first. "Jessica, you've brought light into my life. You've shown me what real family means. I promise to love you, to protect you, and to help you build the future you deserve." The words sounded beautiful. If I hadn't heard that recording, I might have been moved. Jessica started her vows, her voice clear and strong. But halfway through, she stopped. Her hand moved to her bouquet, fingers finding the recording device. Something in Andrew's expression had changed. A flicker of impatience, maybe, or calculation. She'd seen it. "Andrew?" she said quietly, her voice carrying across the silent lawn. "Tell me about the mineral rights." He blinked, confused. "What?" "Jessica, we're in the middle of our wedding vows." "Tell me about the $2.8 million you and Christopher discussed." The color drained from Andrew's face. "I don't know what you're talking about." Jessica pressed the button on the device. Andrew's own voice filled the air through the hidden speakers Sarah had installed. "We could unlock $2.8 million in additional value. Guy lives alone. Who knows what could happen? A fall, some confusion, maybe early dementia." The guests erupted. Gasps, shouts, people rising from their chairs. Andrew grabbed Jessica's arm. "Jessica, you don't understand. This is taken out of context." "Get your hands off me." Her voice cut through the chaos like a blade. That's when Agent Rodriguez stepped forward, along with 3 other agents who'd been positioned throughout the crowd. "Andrew Sullivan, You're under arrest for conspiracy to commit wire fraud, elder abuse, and interstate financial crimes. Christopher tried to run. He made it about 50 yards before Sarah tackled him near the oil pumps. She might have been a financial investigator, but she'd obviously kept up her physical training. The next hour was controlled chaos. Guests giving statements, agents, collecting evidence, Andrew and Christopher being read their rights. Through it all, Jessica stood beside me, still in her wedding dress, watching the man she'd almost married get loaded into an FBI vehicle. When the cars finally drove away, taking Andrew and Christopher to federal custody, the guests gradually dispersed. Some stayed to help clean up. Others just wanted to get away from the drama. By sunset, it was just Jessica and me, sitting on the front porch where Catherine used to shell peas. "How long have you known?" Jessica asked quietly. "Suspected for months. Had proof for 3 weeks." "Why didn't you tell me?" "Would you have believed me? Or would you have thought I was just a controlling father who didn't trust your judgment?" She was quiet for a long time. "Probably the second one. You needed to see it yourself, understand what kind of person he really was." "I feel so stupid, Dad." "You're not stupid. You're someone who believes the best in people. That's not a character flaw, even when people don't deserve it." We sat in comfortable silence, watching the oil pumps bob steadily in the distance. The same rhythm they'd maintained for 28 years, through good times and bad, through Catherine's illness and death, through today's crisis. Steady, reliable, productive. "What happens now?" Jessica asked. "Now the FBI builds their case. Andrew and Christopher will face federal charges. You'll testify, will cooperate with prosecutors. Life goes on." "And Andrew's other victims?" "Amanda and Rachel have already agreed to testify. There might be others. The FBI thinks this pattern goes back years, maybe decades." Jessica shivered in the evening air. I went inside and got her mother's sweater, the blue one Catherine wore on cool evenings like this. "Dad, exactly how much are we worth? Andrew seemed to know more about our finances than I did." I told her everything then. The $5.1 million in total assets, the property value, the oil income, the real estate, investments. How I'd lived modestly on purpose, why I'd kept the wealth private. "Your inheritance is already structured to protect you," I said. "Trust documents, legal safeguards. No future spouse can touch it without your explicit consent." "Will I ever be able to trust anyone again?" "Yes, but you'll be smarter about it. You'll ask better questions, pay attention to patterns, listen to that little voice in your head when something feels wrong." 6 months later, Andrew Sullivan was sentenced to 12 years in federal prison. Christopher Davis got 5 years. The FBI identified 4 other victims across 3 states, and several energy companies faced fraud charges for their role in the scheme. Jessica moved back to the property for a while, healing. She's dating again now, but she's different. Wiser, more cautious. She asks direct questions about people's backgrounds, their motivations, their financial situations. She trusts, but she verifies. As for me, I'm still here on Catherine's. Dream property. Still driving that old truck. Still wearing work clothes. But I expanded Catherine's garden, added a stone bench where Jessica and I sit most evenings. We talk about everything now. Money, relationships, the future, the past. "Dad," she said one evening last month, "do you ever regret not telling me sooner about Andrew?" "No," I said. "You discovered your own strength. You made the hard choice when it mattered. That's worth more than any protection I could have given you." The oil pumps bob steadily in the distance, just like they have for nearly 3 decades. The mineral rights that Andrew coveted so desperately continue generating income that supports a quiet, comfortable life. Money he never understood wasn't about accumulation. It was about protection, about giving the people you love the security to make their own choices. The real value of wealth isn't what it can buy, but who it can protect when the predators circle. Sometimes the greatest gift you can give someone you love is letting them discover their own strength, even when it breaks your heart to watch them learn the hard way.